Hey, GovCon Giants family, your host Eric Coffie here, teaching small businesses how to win large contracts. If this is your first time tuning in to us, we've got a YouTube channel, a podcast, and we offer coaching, consulting, courses, and more. Visit govconedu.com for more information. Again, that's govconedu.com for more information. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. So if you missed part 1, go back and watch part 1 of our guy, Russell C. Teter III. He is the director of training at SBDC over at University of Maryland, but I'm telling you, the man has juice. So if you missed part 1, go back and listen to part 1. If you're on part 2 here, part 2 is, I'm telling you, he brings fire in this particular episode. A couple things that we discuss: MapQuest, right? Where you are at now versus where you want to go. Wildly important things versus pretty important things. Changing the people that you hang out with, 5 degrees of separation. And he says, is the person that you're spending time with, you're talking to, can they 5X return on your investment in the next 5 years? Mr. Teter is a certified executive coach and facilitator, business value builder, and tech venture facilitator as well. So again, I'm telling you all this because, like I said, I learned a lot on this episode. This is, and I'm going to my notes just because it's so much stuff on here of what we covered. Like, this is my page of notes that I went through on part 2, and this is my page of notes from part 1. So again, if I took this many notes and I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about, I'd be surprised if you didn't take at least that much or more. So again, I'm going to let you get to it. I just want to tell everybody a little bit about Russell before we jump in. I don't want people to turn this thing off because they're like, oh, this guy works at SBDC. I'm telling you, hands down, he's one of the best SBDC persons that I know, that I've met, that I'm engaged with. So I'm referring to all of you out there. All the links to everything that we're talking about is going to be on our website, govcongiants.com/podcast. Let's get it.
There are three questions that when someone's in government contracting that they need to be getting answers to when they're talking with a small business office, when they're talking with a contracting officer. The 3 questions is, what do you buy?
Mm-hmm.
Second question is, what do you not buy? Not use. The distinguishing between what you buy and not buy, not use. So I did a program with a military installation, and I knew there were a lot of office supply people in the room. And I just opened up by asking the contracting officers, do you buy office supplies? And they go, yeah, we use office supplies all the time. And I said, no. Do you buy office supplies? They go, oh no, we buy that off of some right. And it was a prime contractor. It was bundled. So all the people in the room, they're not selling directly to that military installation. Right. They need to sell to that prime contractor to be a sub. So what do you buy? What don't you buy? And the third question is, how do you buy? And be looking at those 3 things of what agencies are spending money, what are the agencies' known problem, and how to best communicate their way.
No, that's I like, because you are giving us a path to follow, whether we choose to follow or not.
That's the so the people that I coach, and this is I was just asked the other day, is what's your how many people do you have that's successful? And I said, well, that all depends on your definition of success. So you talking about somebody that has, I work with someone that, came to me several years ago at 700,000 and now they're at 50 million.
Right.
But also somebody that knows how to make money. They know how to do it, but they make the choice that they don't want to do the hard work. to get there. I define that as a success because they know how to do it.
Right.
They just choose. There's nothing wrong with being self-employed. It's like, you know, in my analogy, it's the difference between renting a home versus owning a home with a mortgage. So there's nothing wrong with renting a home.
No, not at all.
But recognize that once you stop paying rent, you can't live there anymore.
Right. It's right.
So with a business, once you stop working, you're not making any money.
Right.
And you can't sell it as a rental unit because you don't own it.
Right.
So the three different phases that I talk with a business about is you got to get to, you know, that self-employment. You got to be making money. But the second level I talk about is basically the equivalent of owning a home with a mortgage, where the business, just like a home, is trying to work for you and you have something to sell.
Yes.
And then the third, the prize, being at 1%, is like owning a home with no mortgage. You get the right to live there and you don't have to put any effort into it. And when you sell it, you have all the equity. And one of the things that I work with people on is to get their valuation to at least 10 million.
Okay.
And the 10 million mark is if your business is valued at less than 10 million, at best, you're going to find a local business broker to offer your business locally. If you can get your business to a valuation of 10 million or more, that's where national investment bankers will start looking at your business. And where you're going to make more money on a local standpoint or a national/international level. So it's a rough number of the 10 million valuation. Every industry is different. So I was working with somebody that went through my coaching program, and they were about 2.5 million in revenue when they came in. And he learned, I break a business apart into 5 financial areas, work with how to increase each of these 5 financial areas by 10%. That gives a 63% increase in profitability year over year for 983% over 5 years. The reason I can linger off these numbers is because the whole business is numbers. The whole business is math. And a quote from an author, as well as somebody who's on my mastermind group, who's owned 265 businesses. He would buy a business and sell it, and his goal was in 6 months. And he knows that a whole business is math. And a quote from his book is to know the math, KNOW, or no money. So you either know the math or no money, because your business is all math. So, you know, breaking a business down into 5 areas, increasing each one by 10%, gives you a 63% increase in a year, 983. It's increasing an increase by an increase. It's a mathematical multiplier effect. So this business, to go back to the business, is that he was at 2.5 million, and he could only get his business to a $5 million mark with applying everything that I taught him, because there's a maturity level within these certain businesses that he couldn't take it beyond the 5 million mark. And he learned, and this is key, right? He talked to people, he changed who he's hanging out with, that private equity firms would not look at buying a business in this industry until they reach a $10 million revenue mark.
Okay.
So he had to make a choice. He could only get his business to 5 million, and he could only sell it and sail off in the sunset when he got to 10 million. So what did he have to do? He had to make a choice.
Sure.
either keep it at 5 million and not
Right.
sell it, or
Figure out how to get to 10.
but he knew he couldn't.
Right. So he had to bring in the right
So
people.
he merged with a $5 million a year business.
Ah.
And that, he said that was very, very, very scary. But he did it because of that. He had that compelling reason. And he said he was somewhat shocked, but then on the other hand, not shocked, within 6 months after the merger. So 5 plus 5 equals
Right.
10. And the people he was hanging out with said you have to be at the 10 million mark. So he said 6 months after the merger, he was starting to be contacted to buy his business. Now, he only owned half of the business.
Right.
And a lot of people go, well, I don't want to own half of it. I want to own all of it. And I'm not giving you the real numbers, but let's say
Fair.
it was a $10 million now valuation. I'm just making this up because I can do the math easy in my head. Is so 100% of nothing is what?
Oh, that's easy. Nothing.
So 50% of 10 million is what?
5 million.
So, it's looking at that type of thinking, but it's scary.
Right.
It's hard work to decide, are you going to merge or not? And that's what this business is case. But it's looking at, changing who you're hanging out with and what you're reading to get where you want to be 5 years from now. Now, in government contracting, to help explain it, there in business development or sales, they usually use a hunting analogy. And I was speaking at the National 8A Association. I was facilitating a section on doing business with the DoD. And using a hunting analogy, I thought it could go sideways really quickly with using hunting as an analogy. So I changed to fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And talked about the different types of fishing that are out there, from ocean fishing, and I use that as like the federal government, to lake fishing, which is corporate. River fishing would be state contracting opportunities. Pond would be local government fishing. There's a common thread. It's fishing, but it's different types of fishing.
Okay.
And breaking it into 3 parts. So the first part is to ID and nurture a pipeline. That's part 1. The second part is proposal writing / bid submission. That's part 2. And part 3 is contract management. So after you win, you got to manage the contract to be profitable. So breaking apart those 3 areas using the fishing analogy is, ID and nurturing is, well, where are you going to go for the fish? What type of fish do you want? Where are they located? What tackle do you need? What equipment. I emphasize IDing and nurturing opportunities, and I use the word tackle. You don't build a relationship by tackling a contracting officer. So when I use the word tackle, so it was the tools. I broke these down into all T's: tools, tips, tactics, the talent, the tackle, the techniques, the training. So IDing is, where's the fish? What type of fish you're going to do it? What type of equipment? All the different things that you need to do to where are you going to fish? And one of the throwing out the line, right? So what are one of the key things that they say that in order to fish that you need? Patience.
Sorry?
Patience.
Oh.
Patience.
Yeah, no,
right?
fish. You need a lot of patience. I don't like
So
fishing, but you're right. It's patience.
So, what type of bait do you use? I put that into the T is the tools that you're going to use. What type of rod and reel, where are you going to be fishing? But it's a lot of this. So have you ever fished?
I have fished, yes.
Okay. So, part of it is to know, when to move to another part, when to move the boat.
Right.
The illustration is with ocean fishing, and it was DOD. So we talked about ocean fishing. So with ocean fishing, a boat. Okay. And I ask people literally, and I'll ask you, do you own a boat?
I do not own a boat.
Okay. So you can't talk about boat fishing because you don't own a boat.
Fair.
So what do you need to do?
I need to rent a boat, or I need to fish off the side of a pier.
Okay. So in that analogy difference is, if you don't own a boat, you got to rent a boat or borrow a boat. What they say, what is better than owning your own boat?
What's better than it? I mean, I would say definitely using someone else's boat is better than owning your own boat.
Having a friend that owns a boat is better than owning your own boat.
That's correct.
So, but if you can get on a boat and you want to fish in the ocean, what's the other way that you could fish?
Off a pier.
Off a pier.
Right.
So I use the analogy of that. Boat fishing is like prime contracting. Fishing off of a pier or the beach is like subcontracting.
Okay. All right. I make the connection.
So if you don't own a boat and you can't get to a boat, and you want to fish in the ocean, you got to do it off the pier. So subcontracting is a way in, and you could work up to boat fishing. Right. So it's little different types of fish that you're going to find. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's during a lot of this, and this is what?
Oh, that's when you actually
hard work.
Right.
Right. And one of the key parts is to know when to stay and when to leave. So some people in fishing, they're going to stay in one spot too long, and there's no school of fish in that area, and they're just doing this for nothing. Others leave too quickly. They don't cast enough. They don't wait long enough. Okay. So that's a strategic decision in fishing. So part one is to ID and nurture. So what are the tools, the tips, the tactics, the talent, the tackle, the techniques, the training that you're going to use? And my literal fishing, who taught me how to fish, his name was Mr. Warren. Right. So he taught me all that, part one. Now can we get a nibble? You get a strike.
Hold on one second. Can we go back? Okay, you said there's 3 parts. I know the last one was actually after winning the contract, actually doing the contract itself, managing it. Can we just say the first 2 parts?
So the first one was to ID and nurture.
ID and nurture.
Okay. So the second was submitting a proposal.
Okay.
Or a bid.
Okay.
Right. So in that part, right. So you're fishing, right? You get a nibble. Right.
Okay.
What do you got to do? Set the hook.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, you're fishing. Does all the nibbles that you get, you're able to successfully set the hook? No. Okay. Now, let's say you did set the hook. Okay. Did all the hooks that you set in fishing, you're able to literally bring them to the shore or on in the boat, or did you lose some along the way?
We lose some along the way.
Okay. So all that of reeling it in is all part of the proposal process. You're going to lose some. Okay? So that's why the 9 times is key, because you're going to have ones where in the case of the government, they put it out on the street, but they it's not funded.
Right.
Okay. So the fish gets off the hook. Okay. So I was taught by the person taught me, I said his name was Mr. Warren. He told me that when you're reeling it in and you see that you have an eel, you don't even try to bring it in and take off the hook. He said, you cut the line, because it could be an eel that could electrocute you. So just cut the line. And that's making a no-go decision. There could be ones that you're bringing in and you see that it's not what you want. Mm-hmm. And you make a no-go decision. So you bring it aboard. You bring it in on the boat, or you bring it in on the shore. So you want it. Okay. That's the second part. Mm-hmm. The third is what?
Managing it.
So my analogy is that's cleaning the fish. That's taking the scales off. That's cooking it, all so that you can enjoy the fish.
Okay. Okay.
So those three phases, and each have, different tools that you need, different tips, different tactics, different talent, different tackle. Remember, not tackling people, but different equipment, techniques, and training in each of those 3 phases. So, what avenues you're going to use to find opportunities and nurture opportunities. So there's a lot. And as you know, in government contracting, if something is put in SAM, it's usually too late. Mm-hmm. So how can you get ahead of the game? Proposal writing, one of the models that I talk to people about is the Shipley model. That's just my opinion of a great way to improve your proposal writing or bid response, is following the Shipley model. That's another book.
For people that are not familiar with the Shipley model, what's the Shipley model?
It's Google it. It's a book, series of books.
Okay.
On proposal writing. They have their way of doing it. So, contract management is having a cash flow budget, really looking at, when are you going to get paid?
Red team, blue team, pink team, green team?
Yep.
Okay. No, I mean, I've heard of it. I just wanted to familiarize people who've never heard it before. So, with that process. I've heard a lot of these successful small businesses that I have on my podcast. They discuss the Shipley model. Let's question. And again, I love the book recommendations. I love the quotes. You wrote an article here. I have
many articles, but which one?
This one, it was in your bio when I pulled you up over at marylandsbc.org, and it says you wrote, and again it listed the 8 attitudes to be a successful entrepreneur, lessons on entrepreneurism for Martin Luther King Jr., and do your own business, or does the business own?
So let's talk about the Martin Luther King one, for example.
Okay.
I firmly believe that the growth plan outline that I follow is of that of Martin Luther King's, his growth plan. So a lot of people look at his "I Have a Dream" speech as his growth plan. That was not it. His growth plan was letter from Birmingham jail. That was his growth plan. And there were 3 key steps that Dr. King followed. And in the article, the original article that I wrote with somebody that worked in Dr. King's organization in the 60s, And we made an argument that if Dr. King wrote his growth plan in the business of his day, he would have wrote a good one. But because he was arrested and in solitary confinement, he wrote a great one. So the key is, in my mind, is to write a great growth plan is you got to get out of the day-to-day of the business. It's really hard to really be addressing the questions in the business of the day. So he was in solitary confinement, and what I believe that you should step out of your business for 2 to 3, maybe 4 days a year, following what is known as the Rockefeller habits. So Rockefeller removed himself from his business every year. He had a yearly retreat with himself and identified reaffirmed his goals and identified what are the 5 major things that he needed to do in this year to get from where he is now to reach those goals. And that's what Dr. King did, is he, in thinking and dreaming in solitude, and I have worksheets that I take people through to think and dream in solitude. And it starts with worksheet 1 is that personal statement of desire. But it's looking at, what are your goals? What are your initiatives that you have to do in the next year to reach those yearly goals? And so step 1 of Dr. King was thinking and dreaming in solitude. Step 2 is writing down your growth plan. And a lot of businesses don't get it in writing. So getting your entire business onto one page. There's different formats I take people through. I have a business canvas outline or an X matrix that I use of getting their business onto one page. And I have businesses all the time that say, well, my business is way too complicated to get onto one page. Right. And I agree with them completely. Their business is way too complicated. If you can't get your business onto one page, if your business is too complicated, it will never be able to duplicate without you, meaning that the business is going to be completely dependent on you. And the thinking and dreaming in solitude is getting you literally to do that. Step 2 is writing it, and you can see Dr. King's in the Smithsonian, his notes, and it's getting it on paper. This is your plan, so whatever format works best for you, but it's amazing how everything works out so brilliantly in your head. But once you get it on paper, you start having it starts getting you to think, and if you have other people in the room helping you, if it doesn't work on paper, it will never work in reality. You got to get it to work on paper first. And when I say paper, it doesn't literally mean paper. I do a lot in Excel and things like that.
Right, but, absolutely.
But if you can't get it to work, and working with business owners, they say, yeah, I'm going to have this number of prospects, and I start breaking it down, and it's getting down to a week level. And they're like, I can't communicate with that many people in a week. That means it's not going to work.
Right. The whole model failed already.
You're setting yourself, so you got to get to work on paper. Now, if it works on paper, I can't guarantee you it will work in reality. But if it doesn't work on paper, I can guarantee you it will not work in reality. So it's to get that on the one page. Again, their goals, and what are they going to do to achieve those goals? And that is identifying, using another analogy of the big rocks. And one of the most dangerous statement a business owner can make is, I'm going to work until it's done. Why is that the most dangerous statement a business owner can make?
They're gonna work it until it's done.
Why is that? Why is that dangerous?
I don't even understand the statement. What is it?
Okay. So a statement a business owner makes is, I'm going to work until it's done. Why is that dangerous? Because it's never done.
Gotcha.
Your business,
No,
it's never done.
It's now. There's always more work.
So the number one cause of business failure is burnout. So if you burn out, and another point that I make is you got to make your business fun. Going back to E-Myth, it talks about looking at your business as a game. There's two parts of a game. One is it's competitive. Just like a game is competitive. Business is competitive. There's winners and losers. But a game is to be fun. And the day you stop having fun in your business is the day you begin to fail. You gotta have fun. So how do you have fun is that you have a business that works, has time and money. So if you work until it's done, you're going to get burned out. And the key thing is distinguishing between the most profitable activities that you can do and the less profitable activities. And this is the distinction of one of the key distinctions between those that do the hard work, those 1%, or those that are in the 99%, it's discipline. The discipline of saying no to good ideas, to only say yes to great ideas. And identifying those big rocks. What are they? And I get it down to 5 major big rocks. And so a quote that I use, and I talked about the 2 pits. So how do you avoid the 2 pits is to have wit, W-I-T, to avoid the pit, P-I-T.
Okay.
The W-I-T, get it?
Yep.
Have wit to avoid the
pits.
The W-I-T is wildly important things. To avoid the pretty important things. That's how you put yourself in the wildly into the 1%, is by identifying the wildly important things to avoid the pretty important things. In other words, the wildly important profitable activities, distinguishing between the pretty profitable or less or no profitable. And to make something wildly important is to make it weakly important. And putting it on your calendar and protecting these wildly important things, these big rocks, from the less important or not profitable activities. And that is really, really hard because the business owner has all this stuff coming at them. And most of it is what I call pebbles. And it's distinguishing between having those big boulders, having those on your schedule, and not having the discipline. And I take people to another book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, which kind of talks about this analogy. So that is your plan. It really gets down to having it on your calendar, what you're going to do next week to get where you want to be in 5 years.
So
Make something wildly important just to make it weakly important.
So let's go back, because we've given people a lot of information, right? And I like, because you've given them tactics, but I think sometimes the mom and pop person, right? They look at this stuff and they go, well, everything is important.
And if everything is important, nothing is important.
And we agree.
Yeah.
And you and I agree with that. But I think that for us, and again, I try to put myself in this, and again, I've been a small business. I'm still a small business. But again, I've learned to hire people immediately. So that's just one of the things that I've done. And I immediately start delegating work, delegating authority, dividing up who's, the talented and their skill set, and appropriating people in the right place. So I've done that. But like you said, I've also moved away from being around certain people. Like you said, who are you around and what are they doing to the books that you're reading? So I've also made a conscious effort to move away from certain people groups and put myself around certain people groups, even to the extent of today, like where I live physically is there's a high concentration of billionaires. And so I intentionally moved here just to be in that arena with the types of persons, people, things like that.
It's amazing that once you start thinking and acting with the mindset, having the skill set and tool set that of wealthy people, those people are going to start surrounding you. And nobody believes it until it starts happening.
Right.
But once you start talking that language, they're going to start following you because they want to be around people that are thinking that way.
Absolutely. So, and I agree with you. And again, I'm saying that because I've done it. But really, if we all step back and look at all of the big tech companies, like most of them came out of Silicon Valley, like they intentionally moved to Silicon Valley because that's where, right, tech companies were being built and developed. And so if you want to be in that space, you moved to Silicon Valley. If you want to be an actor and actress, you went to Hollywood. If you want to be on Broadway, you went to New York. So people have been doing this for a very long time. But for some reason, as small businesses, we have a hard time grasping that idea. Right? Like, I mean, everyone else knows that, right? Everyone else understands those concepts, actors, actresses, even people, I know youth that play sports and they go to certain high schools because of the sports that curriculum, and they have the athletes that go to these or attend these high schools have a higher percentage of opportunities to be drafted or to go to, right? Like colleges, certain D1 schools, to play at the college level, the collegiate level, so that they can eventually become drafted. So you're right. In every other space, people have that plan. But for some reason in the small business space, we don't.
And it sounds simple, but from my experience, it's getting out of your business and having that retreat with to identify. I tell people, people that are in the 1%, they get out of their business 2 to 3 days a year. Bill Gates still
does it. Yes.
2 to 3 days, have a retreat.
Right.
Then get out of your business 2 to 3 months. I'm sorry, 2 to 3 hours every month. Then get in your business every week to identify the big rocks that you got to put on your schedule. And then just do what's on your schedule, protecting those big rocks. So let me just finish up the third step of Martin Luther King's 3-step process of creating that great growth plan. Is the third step is that external. So the letter from Birmingham jail that we can read today, that's purpose. Its primary purpose was to raise money. what a lot of business owners do is they only do that external, business plan to get financing, capability statement to get a contract. But they don't spend the time in solitude. They don't, write out their growth plan. They only do the external. So they got to do step one, step two to get to step three. And a lot of business owners don't do those three steps. And the last thing I wanted to point out on that is just imagine with that growth plan, if Dr. King stared at his circumstances. When he was in prison, what was his circumstance? What did he see in front of him?
Oh, he had to have some sort of vision that.
No, well, what did he? What
did he see in front of him? Was he saw bars and walls
yes.
and other prisoners yeah.
But just imagine if Dr. King focused on his circumstances, how the world would look different today. Mm. What Dr. King did was he saw beyond those circumstances. He dreamed beyond it. He identified the opportunities that he could do. He outlined the obstacles that he could control. He looked at the resources that he could utilize, and he outlined the steps that he needed to take to build on the opportunities, address the obstacles, utilize the resources to reach that dream. He saw beyond it.
Where can I find the complete article that you wrote? Because I tried Googling, I couldn't find it.
It's out there. So there's many different. I mean, you could put the email out to your listeners, my email, and if they email me, I'll send it to them. I'm sure that's in Google somewhere. And there's
I see
the original one in it.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
What I see, it looks like a presentation that you did. It says a short excerpt from the manual, CEO Accelerator, Accelerate Growth to Earn More, Work Less by Russell C. Teter III.
So
I see nine slides here.
Okay.
And then I see, let me see. How does one go from wishing and hoping that something will change to having details create change? 70 hours a week to earning money, have both time and money, open doors. Key number one, open with your mind. Key number two, dream. Key number three, opportunities. I see that draft, but I was looking for an article. And again, I love this. This is amazing. So we're going to make this available.
I can send it to you and then you can make it available to you.
Yeah, what we'll do is on our website, we'll link to your bio. We'll make sure to link the article and these slides because this is obviously well thought out and organized, put together. Some other things that you mentioned here. Martin Luther King, while in prison, looked beyond his circumstances, prison bars, and wrote down Gandhi-sized goals. Gandhi dreamed that the most powerful empire in history would walk out of India. We know the British did just that. It all started with Gandhi's dream. Do you have Gandhi-sized dreams? It's powerful stuff, man.
So just who was Martin Luther King's mentor?
Right.
Gandhi.
Right.
Who was Gandhi's mentor?
I don't know that one.
Henry David Thoreau.
Okay.
Now, that is the key that we were talking about is Martin Luther King did not interact with Gandhi. He was on his virtual board.
Right.
What Napoleon Hill called it. Gandhi did not interact with Henry David Thoreau because he was dead, but he read about him.
Right.
I thought it was interesting that it went from, Henry David Thoreau, who was from the United States, to Gandhi, who was in India, back to Martin Luther King, who was in the United States. It just kind of made a path. I thought that was interesting in history. It's changing who you're hanging out with. Those are people. That's known as.
How do you do that, Russell? How do you do that?
How do you change who you're hanging out with?
Yeah, how do you do it? Give me some practical examples. I mean,
So
again, I know it sounds easy, but you've done
it's
you
hard
hey, you
work.
right.
It's
You've
hard
dealt with
work to
14,000 small businesses. So you know that for some of us, it's not so easy. So give us some
so
practical examples of people, or have you seen people do it in the past?
one thing is that it's recognizing that the person that you need to speak with is no more than 5 people away from who you know now.
Okay.
So there was a degree separation with Kevin Bacon movies and things like that, but it's a psychological fact, not a psychological, but a organization behavior fact is that in the world now, who you need to talk to is no more than 5 people away from you who you know now. Now it's fun to go backwards of who knew but going forward, it's who's in your network now and asking them. So if somebody asks you a question of, do you know somebody in this particular agency at the DoD? Okay.
Yes.
I'm just using that example. Somebody asks you that question. What's the worst thing you're going to say back?
No, I don't know anyone.
No. So
if
you can overcome that fear of
right.
somebody saying no. So when you're asking a fair question, now, if somebody asking you, do you know somebody at this agency in the DoD, and you say no, then the next question is, do you know anybody that may know somebody? And you say, well, you give a name. That person may. So that's how you're building that network, and it's constantly be thinking of a return on investment that wealthy people use is 5 times 5 years cash exit. So if they invest money, they want 5 times that back in 5 years or less in cash. If they invest time, they want that back 5 times that in 5 years or less in cash. So it's turning everything into cash. So it's the having the discipline, the mindset to always be looking at, can this person that I'm talking with, can I get 5 times 5 years cash exit? And if the answer is yes, you keep talking. If the answer is no, what do? You move on. Or you mark it off as a social engagement, you're having fun, things like that. You got to do that. Right. But from a business standpoint, it's always and it's changing who you're hanging out with. Now, there's people that, the term mastermind group, people think that refers to, you need to have a group, you need to have a board. I have a mastermind group. And I say that the only time that they're going to get together is at my funeral. I don't work that way. That's not my way. I work with them one-on-one. Who I question, I ask them, I get an answer, who do you know, things like that. I work back and forth. I don't work from a group standpoint. And there's people that say, you got to have them in a group, you got to have everybody on in the same room or on the same Zoom. And you don't. I don't believe you do. So it's whatever works for you. And, the virtual board, you need to be looking at, what do you need to be reading? And when I say reading, I don't literally mean it has to be a book. It can be virtual. Right. There's people that, used to be on my mastermind group that are now on my virtual board because they died. There's people that could be on my virtual board that could be the mastermind group. So the person I just mentioned that had the quote, know the math or no money, he was on my virtual board. I got his book. I learned, he wrote a couple books, and I got a chance to meet with him, and now we talk all the time.
It's interesting, Russell. So I was talking with my son because I read a lot of books, and so I teach them. I've taught him now. He's 25, but I've taught him that sometimes we have to trick our minds. And so one of the things when we talk about trick our minds, like you talk about this virtual mastermind group, right? And mentors. And he brought this up to me, which I thought was really interesting. is because I said to him, I said, well, because he's handling all of my social media, he's learning about social media. And I said he was studying. He goes, well, Dad, I don't like to consider it studying because for me, studying associates with school and school is not fun. He says, I like to imagine that I'm hanging out with these people and they're teaching me. And he goes, so for me, when I'm watching them online, I'm watching their content and I'm taking it down. He goes, I imagine myself actually physically hanging out with them and like we're having a good time and they're just talking to me and they're just reeling off all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, he's like, and I'm taking notes. And so that's how he changes how he views that relationship with the person he's learning from virtually or through the content that he's absorbing.
And in the book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill tells the story, and he had a major decision he had to make, and he felt that Lincoln was sitting at the edge of his bed advising him. Now, was Lincoln literally there? No. Okay. But he read so much from about and by Lincoln that he felt like he was getting advice from Lincoln. And that is the key with your virtual board. And one of the illustrations that I use, your virtual board does not even need to be people from the past. They could be fictional. So one of the virtual board members that I have is Captain Ahab from Moby Dick. And that going back to, so when I was in college, I ended up going to the wrong meeting. And I thought that I was going to a meeting for the Management Association, but I ended up in a room for a meeting where a nonprofit was looking for interns. And the name was similar and I didn't look closely. And that organization used classic literature and films as case studies. And they were looking for interns. And I will never forget, I was a freshman in college, and that kind of helped me make the transition from law enforcement to economic development, corporate training, and that route was I saw a clip from Moby Dick in that classroom. And it was by, he's an author named John Clemens, he wrote several books on this, taking classic literature and films and using it from a learning experience. And that is really what transformed me. I got a internship and I worked there. I still had the law enforcement desire, but then when that didn't work out and I started looking at economic development and corporate training, and then I moved into small business training. So Captain Ahab, it's a clear illustration of what to do and what not to do. And with that, one of the movies that people in government contracting that I recommend that they watch as a visualization and then applying the principles is the movie War Dogs. It's on Netflix. It's a true story. War dogs is a derogatory term for the DoD contractors. And it's a true story of two people that went to it, and it had great lessons of what to do, of how they nurtured their pipeline, how they got non-traditional financing, how they didn't do anything, they subcontracted everything out. Great lessons of what to do, but also great lessons of what not to do. So I'm going to give a spoiler. Have you ever watched the movie?
Actually, we recommend it to our students.
Okay.
It's actually in my free course. We recommend War Dogs. Just for people who are unfamiliar with government contracting to at least become familiarized with some of the terms and the databases and the systems as well. Yes.
So I'm going to give a spoiler to those who have never watched it. They end up going to jail because they broke the DFAR. Now they knew that they were breaking it and they lied, but great lessons of what to do and not to do, because some of the times in the DFAR, there's things that people may think is just business, and the DFAR says you can't do it. Yeah, they knew they couldn't do it, and they tried to do it. They did it anyway.
Right.
What to do and what not to do. And so 80% of the time, while somebody's not growing, is because they don't have that burning white heat of desire to do the hard work. But the other thing, and I'll roughly say it's about, I would say almost always, so 95% of the time when we're identifying those big rocks, I really describe myself as a facilitator, because the business owner, I would say 95% of the time, they know what they need to do to grow their business. They need to have somebody to kind of bring it out of them, but deep down inside,
right,
you know it.
Right.
And it's just pulling it out, getting it on paper. And then my question is, are you doing it? And most of the time it's no. So they know what they need to do.
Right.
You get it on paper.
Right.
You know, 5 major rocks. Then what's keeping you from doing it? And do you know what the number one reason why people aren't doing it?
Tell me.
Fear.
I say that. Now, let me ask you, wait, hold on. Fear of success or fear of failure?
Oh, a lot of times it is a fear of success.
Oh, preach, Russell.
So people are, they have a belief that they're not good enough. And their fear of, if they are successful, it's going to expose them. They're really deep down, it's more of a fear of being exposed as a, not being something.
Right.
So a lot of it is overcoming the fear. And a lot of it is, accepting, well, what's the worst, when you make that phone call, when you do this, when you do that. So there's 2 video clips that I show to people to overcome the fear. And since you're Googling things,
right.
So they're both in YouTube. One, to overcome fear, is Bob Newhart, Overcome Fear. And it's a clip of Bob Newhart. It's a comedian thing. And it's a how to overcome fear. And if you know Bob Newhart, you know that it's funny, because that's Bob Newhart. So that's one.
Hold on, wait a second. I'm looking at Bob Newhart. I see stop it. I see suicide.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Okay. Stop it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then how I finish. So yep, the Bob Newhart. Yep. So you have it, the top one there. Bob Newhart, Stop It.
All right, it's only 6 minutes. Is that the right one? It's only 6 minutes? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Gotcha. All right. Okay. And the second thing?
And the other one,
mm-hmm.
This is how I close my training, coaching, is so put into YouTube, Indiana Jones, Leap of Faith.
Got it. That's only a minute?
Yep.
Okay, hold on. Let me share it again.
It says everything in 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay.
So Indiana Jones's father was shot by the Nazis. And in order to save his father's life, he had to get to this holy cup. And if his father drank from it, he would be saved. So he had the document that showed that there was a bridge crossing this gap. But he looked down and he couldn't see it. He kept looking at, it said to do it, and he looked back at his father, why he was doing it. You have to look at that statement of desire. Why are you doing it? He looked back at his father. That's why he was going to cross this, where he didn't see this bridge, even though it said it was there, that why. That gave him the courage. And his father said, you got to believe. You got to first believe it, or else you're never going to do it. And then, even though he didn't see it, so many times we have that calendar, we have so much stuff coming at us. And the big rock was to make that phone call or do that invoicing or whatever it may be. And we got all this stuff coming at us. And we don't see that we should be doing this, but it says we should be doing it. And he had to take that leap of faith, even though he didn't see it. And I tell people that visualization right there is true entrepreneurship. Every day it's taking a leap of faith when you don't always see it. Because true faith, by definition, is action. So it's taking actions every day towards that desire. In his case, it was his father. And the video shows where you can't see it, and he still took that leap of faith.
Wow.
And then at the bridge was there. He walks across it, and at the end, he picked up some pebbles and threw it on the path. And I point that out. It's documenting your takeaways to make the next step easier.
I know. I mean, that's, and I'm looking at the clip on here, and I believe that I actually do remember that clip. I don't remember the words that were expressed, but in looking at the actual video footage on the screen, I do remember this particular clip. I'm old enough to remember that. So, no, that's great. And even in the comments, it says, "I'm trying to start my own business. When times get tough, I think about this scene."
And that's what separates, creating that 1%. Now, roughly speaking, of all the people that I work with, and this statistic is that 2% actually do the hard work. 2% are actually prepared.
2% are prepared. Okay.
2% are taking that leap of faith every day.
Right.
But only half of those do the opportunities actually are aligned with their preparation.
Right.
So half of 2% is what?
That's one.
Right.
Wow. Well, Russell, we've been at this 2 hours, and I'm enjoying all the conversations. I'm probably going to end up splitting this up into 2 episodes, just so people can digest it in one, and they don't have to go through one setting. And so I'm really enjoying this. Can you, so we're going to start wrapping it up, winding down here. It seems like you're enjoying, because you're not slowing down.
I have over 100 hours worth of content. So I shared 2 hours of it with you. But this is what I do every day, and I'm truly blessed to be, through the SBDC at University of Maryland. My passion, to make money at this, I would have to help a millionaire become a billionaire. And there's nothing wrong with that, but my passion is to help somebody reach their first million. And do that, there's really no money in it, and that's the advantage of working through the SBDC, is to help people get to that first million. That's my passion. You can tell I have the passion behind. I enjoy this.
No, I see that. How, but can you tell, I don't remember covering this. What is the SBDC? What's their mission, right? Because again, we're speaking to you yourself, but for those of us who don't have a Russell Teter the third, right? When we have to go to our local SBDCs, what should we be expecting? Are there certain things we should ask? Or things we should look for, right? What is the SBDC? What's their role besides what I read on the website? How do you
generally speaking, the SBDC's role is to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. Okay. So a lot of businesses don't know where they are now. A lot of businesses don't know where they want to be.
Right.
And then the SBDC, so the three questions that I ask people is, where are you now in business? Where do you want to be in business? And how may I best serve you to get you from where you are now to where you want to be?
Okay.
And, you know, if somebody asks, the Small Business Development Center person's job is to answer questions. So if you ask a vague question, you're going to get a what kind of answer?
Vague answer.
But if you ask a specific question,
you're gonna get a specific answer.
Now, a lot of time, what I do is not help the people answer. I don't give the answer to the question, and that frustrates people.
Okay.
So 95% of the time, who has the answer?
You do. Small business does.
So yeah, they really know what they need to do. So now, the old phrase, and it goes back to my analogy, you can give somebody the fish and feed them for a day, mm-hmm. or you can teach them to fish and help them feed themselves for a lifetime.
Right.
So it frustrates people is that I don't always just give them the answer. I help pull it out of them because deep down they know what it is. So, because if I just give them the answer, then they keep having to come back. Where if I help pull that question out and get it on paper, and we talk about how to do it, whatever it may be, then that gives them the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set to get where they need to be. So a lot of what I do is giving the right mindset, the right skill set, the right tool set. I may not answer the question, but I help people to, and the SBDC helps people to answer or to ask the correct question and who they need to ask it to.
That's super important. I tell I've read this somewhere, but I share it with my son because I work with him a lot. And I tell him, I said, you're not asking the right questions. I said, if you ask different questions or better questions, you'll get different answers or better answers.
And who to ask that to. Now, I used to say to people, ask me any question and visualize a huge network behind me to answer that. And I've had to change it because I said that to a person and he looked at me dead in the eyes because I said, ask me any question. And he looks at me and goes, what I want to know is how to find a life partner. And I said, sir, I can help you get more money and more time.
Right.
But sir, the rest is up to you.
Right.
So I've changed it a little bit. Now I say, whatever your business question is. I mean, I didn't, what was eharmony.com. I don't know how.
I don't know. Right. Yeah. Sure.
But, having more time and more money. But now I change it to, whatever your business question is.
So what should someone expect walking into an SBDC? Well, first of all, If I want to work with you, could I? Is SBDC local?
There is an SBDC in every state. So all you have to do is Google whatever their state is, Small Business Development Center, and they can find it.
But what if I
There's
was
one
not?
in every.
What if I was not happy with my representative? And I said I want to work with Russell Teter because Russell, I heard him on the podcast. This guy is super smart. He's helped 16,000 people. He's helped someone go to 50 million a year. That's the guy. I will go to Maryland to work with Russell.
Technically, you should be working with your SBDC.
Okay.
The University of Maryland has issues with me working with, because it's a University of Maryland is for Maryland, and
Right.
there's one for, so
Right.
so if they're asking the correct questions and they're not getting the answers, then it's changing your mastermind group. It's applying the principle all the time, and
Okay.
it could be you just got to move to the next level,
Okay.
whatever it may be. So Googling Small Business Development Center for their state, that'll get them into the pipeline. There's one in every state: DC, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. I always like to joke that my goal is to work for the Virgin Islands SBDC.
Oh.
So the Maryland's warmer.
I have a student. I have someone that works for me that's in Virgin Islands, so maybe we can make
there
that
you
happen.
go.
See, we're
And
one degree away, right? We're one person away.
And then California and Texas has two, because the state's so big. New York, believe it or not, it's all part of one network, but Texas and California have two different networks. So just Google it. And again, SBDC is one entity. It's building your mastermind group to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. And I use the analogy of driving, MapQuest. You got to look at your business as a quest, which is an adventurous journey by definition. MapQuest was designed to make your trip more enjoyable so you didn't get lost. And the two things that you had to put into MapQuest, and our GPSs do this automatically in a sense, but you got to put into MapQuest where you are now. And a lot of businesses have to determine where they are now.
Right.
Next is where they want to go.
Sure.
Right? You got to put that in. And then you hit enter and you get a list of roads that are most likely that you got to travel on. These are your big rocks. Are you guaranteed that these are the rocks these are the roads that are going to get you there? No.
Right.
But those are the most likely. And I have two sets of businesses that I work with. The ones are using that analogy. Give me another 30 seconds. I'll finish off this analogy. Is there's ones that, they get in the car and they start driving. They don't look at a map. They don't talk to people. They just start driving and they wonder why they get lost. Okay. Then there are those that are sitting in their driveway and they're staring at the map. They're talking to people and they just get frozen. And I call this analysis paralysis because you have too much information. So you need to balance those two. You got to look at your map. You got to talk to people who's been there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Before you go the next step. But don't get analysis paralysis. So a quote that I love is, you can't steer a parked car. You got to gather the information, but don't get paralyzed because you got to start moving. And then if the road is closed, what do? You navigate around it. If there's traffic, there's an accident, whatever, you navigate around it. No, that's why it's 2 to 3 days out of your business per year, every year, to identify what are the major roads that you need to travel on. Mm-hmm. But then get out of your business every 2 to 3 hours every month, because you got to make adjustments, because this is just in time planning. There's no, I do a business plan and, it's every year, then get out of your business for 2 to 3 hours every month and make adjustments. Then out of your business for every week, identifying your big rocks for that next week, put them on your calendar, and then do it. And protect from the as Four Disciplines of Execution calls it, the whirlwind that's coming at you. Because nothing should be moving the big rocks unless it's a bigger rock.
Can you tell me an odd place that you've worked before that no one would have guessed?
Yes. When I was in AmeriCorps,
Uh-huh.
I worked 3 months in a locked female, and I emphasize worked, in a locked female psych ward at a VA hospital. I was assigned there for 3 months as a recreational therapist. And that was a very interesting experience. As the first day working there, they had a treatment team that they really applied that mastermind concept. And they had a treatment plan, treatment team that had a psychologist, a psychologist, a nurse, a social worker, a chaplain, and then me as a recreational therapist. And every patient had a treatment plan to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. And everybody had to sign, the patient and every person on the treatment team had to sign this treatment plan. Everybody had to be on the same page. And my first day working there, and I had no experience in psychology other than getting a C in Psych 101, but that's where AmeriCorps assigned me to. And they were talking about, getting it signed. And they were talking about one person that had not signed the treatment plan. And the patient was saying, yeah, I know, we got to get everybody to sign it. But everybody on the treatment team around the table seemed like they had signed it. And I raised my hand and I said, am I supposed to sign it? Am I that one person? I go, no, you'll sign other ones, but this is your first day, so you don't sign here. And then I learned that the patient had 6 personalities. 5 of them had come out to sign it, but one hadn't come out to sign it. And that was the one that was causing all the problems. Mm. So that was my first day. A patient that had 6 personalities, 5 of which had come out, 1 of which had not.
And the one that hadn't come out was causing all the problems.
Yes, that was an interesting.
Again, I'm 3 months.
That my experience was getting a C in Psych 101 in college.
Tell me something that you purchased recently off of Amazon that made you happy.
Something I purchased off of Amazon.
Yeah.
The last thing that I purchased off of the Amazon was a standing desk.
Okay.
To be able to do Zoom meetings in a standing desk.
Okay. All right.
So sometimes it works sitting down, like I am now, but sometimes when I'm doing a presentation, and that is something that I learned in during COVID of what was my hobby. I never really had a hobby. I don't play golf or hiking and things like that. And I realized what truly makes me happy. Standing in front of a room full of people. Public speaking. I didn't learn that until COVID hit, when all that went away. That was truly what made me happy. And it's interesting is that, I grew up with a speech impairment. I couldn't speak to one person. I was in special ed most of my childhood because I couldn't say sounds. I was to a speech therapist, and now how do I make a living? by public speaking. So it's an interesting transformation of how that happened, because to most Americans, what is the most fear that most Americans have?
Public speaking. Yeah.
Right? Guess what number 2 is? A violent death.
Wow. So
I joke when because I teach, making presentations, and I say, is if somebody's asked to give a eulogy, they'd rather be in the casket
and give the eulogy. That's interesting. That's a pretty good joke. I like that.
So, but and a lot of it's overcoming that fear, and that's like I showed earlier on, but I keep referencing the Bob Newhart, the clip of how to overcome fear. This is 2 words. Watch the video.
I'll watch it. All right, go ahead and wrap it up for small business out there. I mean, you've given us a lot of pointers, a lot of tips. You've given us some tactical things. Go ahead and close us out with thoughts, ideas. I don't expect it to be short because, like you said, you've got 100 hours of content in that brain. So.
The key thing, and we started with this, I'm going to close with this, is 80% of the time that why businesses don't launch successfully and why they don't grow is because they don't have that written statement of desire. They can't answer the question of why are you doing the hard work? And if you don't have that, especially, and if you're not reading it twice today, you're not going to be driven to change your, because it's a discipline. Right. It's people know what they need to do. They know what the big rocks are. They got to get it on paper. They got to get it on the calendar. But if you don't have a burning white heat of desire of what you're going to do with that money, because money is just a means to an end. Right. But the key thing is what are you going to do? What is your life purpose? What is your keystone that holds it all together? If you don't have that, you're not going to be successful. The businesses that do, it's amazing how they start seeing things because they see beyond their circumstances, like Dr. King. When you have that dream, the opportunities become more aware. They exist. They just don't see them when they're staring at the circumstances. They got to see beyond it, that vision, looking at the opportunities that they could build on, the obstacles that they could control. That's one of the key things is people sitting around and complaining about things they cannot control. What can you control? Right. What resources that you have now? And then outline what are the 5 major steps, big rocks, to build on your opportunities, to address your obstacles, utilizing your resources to reach that dream, that goal that you're just driven to achieve of why you want that money. Well, Russell, thank you so much for coming on today. This is Russell Teter III. If you like this content, you like the video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and then comment below in the video notes. Or if you're watching this on podcast, Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Play, leave us a review based on today's session. Also, ask questions because we do occasionally have our podcast guests go back and look at the questions that are answered below. So again, all of the show notes from all of the books, recommendations, videos, content, and everything else will be on the website, govcongiants.com/podcast. Thank you so much, Russell, for coming on today. Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Make sure, if you haven't already, send all of your contact information over to Maria so we can make sure we tag you, post you, have people reach out to you wherever you would like them to, whether it's on Twitter, LinkedIn. I noticed that you didn't have your picture on LinkedIn, so maybe you don't want us to find you there. So that's okay. No, my picture should be on LinkedIn. Maybe it's a different LinkedIn profile. So we'll pull it up afterwards. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Russell. Thanks. All right. Bye now.